Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtaprayeshu Avadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamam Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naishtiki. So continuing with our discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, today we are starting new chapter, chapter 28. Puranjan becomes a woman in the next life. Wow. Next one. Naraduvacha Sainika Bhaya Namno Ye Barhishmandishtakarina Prajvara Kal Kanyabhyam Vicherur Avanim Imam. The great sage Narad continued, My dear King Prachin Barhishat, afterwards, the king of the Yavans, whose name is fear itself, as well as Prajvar, Kalkanya, and his soldiers, began to travel all over the world. So previously we studied how three of them got together, although Kalkanya wanted to marry king of the Yavans, but he accepted her as a sister, sister and sister of Prajvar as well. And now they're traveling all over the world. So Kalkanya is the old age, and the king of Yavans is a fear. The period of life just prior to death is certainly very dangerous because usually at this time people are attacked by the weakness of old age as well as many kinds of disease. The diseases that attack the body are compared here to the soldiers. These soldiers are not ordinary soldiers, for they're guided by the king of the Yavans, who acts as a commander in chief. The word Adishtakarina indicates that he is their commander. When a man is young, he does not care for old age, but enjoys sex to the best of his satisfaction, not knowing that at the end of his sexual indulgence, at the end of life, his sexual indulgence will bring on various diseases, which so much disturb the body that one will pray for immediate death. The more one enjoys sex during youth, the more he suffers in old age. Because the body loses all its strength. And then the too many diseases, they take over. They just kill the body. And this is what is happening here. Fear, Prajvar means the very high temperature, and Kalkanya, old age, and the soldiers. Everybody is attacking the body now. The ekda tu rabasa puranjan purim nripa rurudhor ma bhogadyam jarat pannag palitam. Once the dangerous soldiers attacked the city of Puranjan with great force. Although the city was full of paraphernalia for sense gratification, it was being protected by the old serpent. As one's body engages in sense gratification, it becomes weaker and weaker daily. Finally, the vital force becomes so weak that it is herein compared to a weak serpent, old, weak serpent. The life here has already been compared to the serpent. When the vital force within the body becomes weak, the body itself also becomes weak. At such a time, the death symptoms, that is, dangerous soldiers of death's superintendent, Yamaraj, begin to attack very severely. So this once a dangerous soldiers attacked the city of Puranjan, King Puranjan, with great force. So generally, in like a dharma yuddha, if somebody is weak, somebody is on the ground, the other person or the attacker would not attack him. But here the soldiers of Yamaraj are attacking very severely, more severely when the person is getting old and weak. This is because Krishna wants us to get detached from this body. And this chapter, I mean, even the previous chapters, 3, 4 chapters, this story is going on. And one thing, funny thing is, of course, we'll go through the whole purport. Funny thing is, if you ever notice, none of the Bhagavatam Saptah speakers will tell about this story of King Puranjan. None of them. They'll just jump to Ras Leela of Krishna or this Leela or that Leela. And this story goes on for 3 or 4 chapters. It's not an ordinary story. It's pretty severe. But people don't want to listen to this. And that's when they don't understand what is Bhagavatam actually. It's not about getting very emotional or sentimental and they say, I'm in the bhav of Radha Prem or Krishna Prem or Krishna Bhakti. That's not bhav actually. That's all bhavata. Because if anarthas are not gone, we will not get to the stage of bhav. There is no way. Not about bhav, we cannot even get to the stage of nishtha, ruchi, asakti. But people, they just love to talk about Radha Krishna pastimes. Why Shukdev Goswami, he did not talk to Parikshit Maharaj straight away about Radha Krishna pastimes. He's taken him through the story of Puranjan. Look at the story and read the purpose of Prabhupada. They will make you really go crazy. What I am doing, and this is real preaching, because one has to first get out of the Pali concept of life before even think about Radha and Krishna pastimes. That's why these purports are very, very important, more important than Gopi Leela and the Uddhav Leela and the Ras Leela and the Brahmar Leela. We'll read about this whenever the due time comes. But before that, Shukdev Goswami is preparing Parikshit Maharaj. Sud Goswami is preparing all the sages. Maitreya Muni is preparing Vidura. And Prabhupada is preparing all of us. We have to be eligible. But first is this. So at such a time, means at the old age, that is the dangerous soldiers of Death Superintendent Yamraj begin to attack very severely. According to the Vedic system, before coming to such a stage, one should leave home and take sannyas to preach the message of God for the duration of life. However, if one sits at home and is served by his beloved wife and children, he certainly becomes weaker and weaker due to sense gratification. Means at that time, and actually it should start from very young age, the spiritual practices, spiritual knowledge, then one does not become that weak. Of course, old age comes, everybody becomes weak. But even if you look at from Prabhupada's life itself, at the age of 69, he left India to go to America to start a new movement without any money, without any acquaintances, any friends, any person he knew in America, nobody. And that too, he had 2 heart attacks on the way. He went by a ship. Took him 38 days to get to America. We take a flight, it hardly takes 24 hours. And by the time we come to India or come to America, we are dead tired. Prabhupada traveled for 38 days. At the age of 70, almost 70, 69 when he left. Because spiritual strength was there. When death finally comes, one leaves the body devoid of spiritual assets. At the present time, even the oldest man in the family does not leave home, being attracted by wife, children, money, opulence, dwelling, etc. Thus, at the end of life, one worries about how his wife will be protected, and how she will manage the great family responsibilities. In this way, a man usually thinks of his wife before death. According to Bhagavad Gita, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajanti ante kalevaram. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. That at the end of life, a person thinks of what he has done throughout his whole life. Thus, he gets another body, Dehanta, according to his thoughts and desires at the end of life. One overly addicted to life at home naturally thinks of his beloved wife at the end of life. Consequently, in the next life, he gets the body of a woman, and he also acquires the results of his pious or impious activities. In this chapter, the acceptance of a woman's body by King Puranjan will be thoroughly explained. Of course, it's not said a woman's body is bad or man's body is good or bad, whatever. It's not said that. It just, whoever is one more attached to, attracted to that kind of body, he will get. So same thing about wife. When she leaves the body, she's pretty much thinking of her husband. Then she'll get a man's body. Now, whether they get married again in the next life, that we don't know. कालकन्यापि बुभुजे पुरञ्जनपुरं बला यया विभूता पुरुषः सद्यो निहस्तार तामिता. Gradually, Kalkanya, with the help of dangerous soldiers, attacked all the inhabitants of Puranjan city and thus rendered them useless for all purposes. At the fag end of life, when the invalidity of old age attacks a man, his body becomes useless for all purposes. Therefore, Vedic training dictates that when a man is in his boyhood, he should be trained in the process of brahmacharya. That is, he should be completely engaged in the service of the Lord and should not in any way associate with women. When the boy becomes a young man, he marries between the age of 20 and 25. When he is married at the right age, he can immediately beget strong, healthy sons. Now, female descendants are increasing because young men are very weak sexually. A male child will be born if the husband is sexually stronger than the wife. But if the female is stronger, a female child will be born. Thus, it is essential to practice the system of brahmacharya if one wishes to beget a male child when one is married. When one reaches the age of 50, he should give up family life. At that time, one's child should be grown up so that the father can leave the family responsibilities to him. The husband and wife may then go abroad, not to America, abroad means to Dham, to live a retired life and travel to different places of pilgrimage. When both the husband and wife lose their attachment for family and home, the wife returns home to live under the care of her grown up children and to remain aloof from family affairs. The husband then takes sannyas to render some service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is a perfect system of civilization. The human form of life is especially meant for God realization. If one is unable to take to the process of Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life, he must be trained to accept these principles at the fag end of life. Unfortunately, there is no training even in childhood, nor can one give up his family life even at the end. This is the situation with the city of Puranjan, figuratively described in these verses. So amazing purport and amazing shloka. So at the fag end of life, towards the end, Kal Kanya, she attacks, means old age attacks and and this basically renders all the senses as useless for all the purposes. But if the person is not spiritually strong, is not engaged in spiritual processes from the beginning, then the desire is still there. The soul is always young. Soul is not going to get old. So the desire is to enjoy, to chew the chew, to get the juice out of these senses is still there. But the senses won't help. They won't work the same way. So these unfinished desires. See, the consciousness, let's just take birth in the next life, whatever consciousness we are developed, and these unfulfilled or partially fulfilled desires, they just carry on. And there's so many lives we have the unfulfilled and partially fulfilled desires. So then we get a new body, then the same desires continue, and then we work again in the new body, and then the new desires are being developed. The cycle goes on and on and on and on. And then we have so many philosophies and so many arguments and so many people telling us what to do and what not to do and how to live our life properly and this or that. That's what Vedas, the scriptures tell us the right thing, what to do. So the point is, Prabhupada says the human form of life is especially meant for God realization. And that generally cannot happen when we are home and we are among the family members who are attached materially, and then we develop our attachment for them. And this is why Prabhupada says, so generally a man takes a woman's body next life and a woman takes a man's body next life. Tayopabhujya manam ve yavana sarvatodisham dvarbhi pravishya subhrisham prardayan saklam purim. When Kalkanya, daughter of time, attacked the body, the dangerous soldiers of the king of the Yavans entered the city through different gates. They then began to give severe trouble to all the citizens. The body has 9 gates, the 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, mouth, rectum, and genitals. When one is harassed by the invalidity of the old age, various diseases manifest at the gates of the body. For example, the eyes become so dim that one requires spectacles, and the ears become too weak to hear directly, and therefore one requires hearing aids. The nostrils are blocked by mucus, and one has to always sniff a medicinal bottle containing ammonia. Similarly, the mouth, too weak to chew, it requires false teeth. The rectum also gives one trouble, and the evacuation process becomes difficult. Sometimes one has to take enemas and sometimes use a surgical nozzle to accelerate the passing of urine. In this way, the city of Puranjan was attacked at different gates by the soldiers. Thus, in old age, all the gates of the body are blocked by so many diseases, and one has to take help from so many medicines and surgical appliances. Very, very description, a great description, and very elaborate, graphical, very graphical of Prabhupada. I mean, all in the shloka it says the king of the soldiers entered the city through different gates. Prabhupada is giving so much of elaboration and graphical. The nostrils are blocked with mucus, and one has to always sniff a medicinal bottle containing ammonia. And evacuation process becomes difficult. Sometimes one has to take enemas, and sometimes Use a surgical bottle nozzle to accelerate the passing of urine. If it is not happening with all of us, one thing or the other, then these things are going to happen. For sure. They will happen. So we have to get more and more serious about our spiritual life. Okay, this life we have, this body, we cannot do anything about it. All we can do is use it in the service of the Lord. But pray to the Lord that let's not get a material body again. Please, Krishna, let me not get a material body again. It's just painful, very, very painful. And this is still very nicely Prabhupada has put, actually. And sometimes, because I've seen it, and although I guess I wasn't fit enough to do the service that my brother did for my parents. I mean, they would pass stool and urine in the bed, and he would come clean them up, clean up the whole bed sheets and everything, and then help them be on the nice, clean bed. And it is terrible. Its situation is so terrible. And sometimes lying on the bed, old people, they develop bed sores because they're lying on only one side. They can't even move until somebody moves them. And the bed sores are very, very painful. And the regular treatment and cleansing is required. And it's too much. And if the body gets paralyzed, well, then it is even worse. So that is why, and another thing, Maitreya Muni is speaking this to Vidura. And Vidura, at the end of fourth canto, we'll see, because Bhagavatam, the Srimad Bhagavatam is not spoken in any chronological order. At the end of fourth canto, we'll see how Vidurji goes back to Hastinapur, and that we have studied in the first canto, how he chastised Dhritarashtra. Why are you sitting here? You're an old man. You're sitting in the house of Pandavas, of Bhima, who killed all your sons. You get out of here. And this is what he's going to tell Dhritarashtra. This is what is going to happen to you, and you think this is a nice thing to do? Go worry about your spiritual elevation, spiritual advancement. And then Dhritarashtra leaves, and then he does his tapasya and leaves the body in the forest. Gandhari also leaves the body with him. And then he achieves the destination. But and this is the reason it is mentioned, when people used to become old, they would leave the house. Not that they didn't want to trouble the kids, because they just wanted to get completely detached. No more attachment, either to the body or to the family members. Just think of God. And leave the body, means pass away somewhere without anybody's knowing, without anybody from the family knowing about it. And that it is mentioned that is a glorious death, because then no more attachment. But anyway, our process is to get attached to Krishna, to get attached to chanting of the holy names. So any little problem happens, we should be chanting, taking shelter of Krishna. Tasyam prapidya manayam abhimani puranjana avaporo vidhan statan kutumbi mamata kula. When the city was thus endangered by the soldiers in Kalkanya, King Buranjan, being overly absorbed in affection for his family, was placed in difficulty by the attack of Yavanraj in Kalkanya. When we refer to the body, we include the external gross body and with its various limbs, as well as the mind, intelligence, and ego. In old age, these all become weak when they are attacked by different diseases. The proprietor of the body, the living soul, becomes very sad at not being able to use a field of activities properly. In Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly explained that the living entity is a proprietor of the body, Kshetragya, and that the body is a field of activities, Kshetra. When a field is overgrown with thorns and weeds, it becomes very difficult for the owner to work it. That is the position of the spirit soul when the body itself becomes a burden due to disease. Extra burdens are placed on the body in the form of anxiety and general deterioration of the bodily functions. So, and the thing is, everybody has to go through it: birth, old age, death, and disease. Everybody has to go through it. So this should just give us a reminder. It is about to come, what we have gone through many times, and let's not go through it again. So we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, the realization is really true, especially on the old ages. When my maternal side, my grandmother passed away, it was, I mean, for last 2-3 months, she was absolutely bedridden. So, like you mentioned, passing stool and cleaning everything was on my mom's hand. She was doing everything. And even like those 3 months before, if she was walking and going to the bathroom, sometimes she has to pass capable enough to go inside the bathroom. Sometimes she was so weak. But this is the fact of this. We have to accept it. This is what happens when someone is, what I would say. And while he was telling verses, and I was just realizing this, how difficult it is to take a birth every 9 months inside of your mother, and then when you some way, what a pain he has to bear, he or she has to bear. So that was like, so just to keep this one side. I mean, the best way is to just be Krishna conscious all the time, chant and chant and chant, I would say.
Yeah, and we saw the birth process that was also mentioned, how a baby takes birth, and that is also very painful. Very, very painful. But we still don't learn our lesson. That's the problem.
It's because of Maya, Prabhuji. What to do? I mean, every time it just entangles from all the sides. Is to keep chanting and keep remembering God, Lord Krishna, and keep reading books of Prabhupada. That will help. That's the
Yep,
only.
that's what we have to do. We have to do, and very seriously we have to do.
Yeah.
प्रभु जी, एक चीज मैं भी ये सोच रही थी कि यंग एज कितनी पावरफुल होती है ना.
Oh yeah.
Everything is working, दिमाग भी, सब कुछ इतना उसमें कितना गुरूर, और मतलब हम ऐसा लगता है कि हमसे बड़ा कुछ है ही नहीं.
Yeah, that is true.
You don't want to listen anything, don't want to do anything. अपनी मस्ती, अपना दिमाग, full of josh, and और एंड आते 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 सब कुछ खत्म. I've also gone through my mom-in-law. She was on bedridden for 3 years, Prabhuji.
Oh boy.
My God. Years.
अब
But
बिल्कुल
माता जी करना
संत
पड़ता है.
औरत,
What to
एकदम
do?
संत, जैसे कहते हैं ना, कभी किसी को जवाब नहीं देना, बिल्कुल शांत, कोई लड़ाई नहीं, कोई झगड़ा नहीं, फालतू बोलना नहीं, बिल्कुल एकदम अपने लिमिट में रह करके बहुत अच्छे से उन्होंने अपनी लाइफ जी है. बट एंड में आके उनका भी हाल बहुत खराब हो गया.
Yeah.
सब कुछ देखते हैं, समझते हैं, फिर बस अभी क्लास खत्म होगी, अगेन वी विल बी ऑन द सेम पाथ. सब भूल जाता है.
Everybody has their chunk duties. जैसी क्लास है, it's all planned.
हाँ बिल्कुल.
Routine wise. पूरे.
Thank you,
So
Prabhu.
let's stop here.
I know.
You all
Thank you,
have
Prabhu.
a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri
Thank you.
Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhu. Jai Shri
Jai
Prabhu.
Shri Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji.